Welcome back to The Struggle, everyone. Today, we are not just analyzing panels. We are stepping directly into the abyss to rewrite the very fabric of causality. We're going to confront a scenario that has haunted me, and I know it has haunted many of you, ever since we first watched the credits roll on the Golden Age, or turned that final, devastating page of Volume 13. We are talking about the Eclipse, that singular moment where the ambition of one man swallowed the world in darkness. But we're asking the impossible question today. We are asking, what if Casca never lost her mind? What if, amidst the blood, the betrayal, and the absolute cosmic horror of Femto's violation, Casca's psyche had held firm? What if the commander of the Hawks woke up in Godot's cave not as a regression into a childlike state to escape the nightmare, but as a fully conscious, traumatized survivor staring back into the darkness? Can you imagine the weight of that silence? I want you to close your eyes for a second and picture the scene. In the original timeline, we have that heartbreaking, guttural scream, the sound of a mind shattering under the weight of a reality too heavy for humanity to bear. It is a mercy in a twisted way. Madness was her shield. It was the only way her soul could survive the sacrifice. But strip that shield away, remove the fog, replace that vacant, wondering look with the sharp, cold, horrified clarity of the woman who led armies. The atmosphere in that cave changes instantly. It's no longer a place of mourning for a lost mind. It becomes a pressure cooker of unresolvable trauma. When Guts wakes up bandaged, missing an eye, missing an arm, vibrating with that raw, suicidal fury that births the Black Swordsman, he looks over at her. In our story, he finds a shell, but in this timeline, he meets her eyes, and she remembers. She remembers everything, every detail of Judeau's death, the sound of Pippin being crushed, the feeling of the brand bleeding on her skin, and most devastatingly, she remembers the betrayal of the White Hawk, the man she idolized, the man she devoted her life to, who stripped her of her agency and dignity in a display of godlike cruelty. This is where the true horror begins. You see, Berserk is fundamentally a story about the struggle against causality. But here, the struggle isn't just against monsters, it is against the memory itself. If Casca is sane, the dynamic of the story doesn't just shift, it explodes. Guts can't simply leave. Think about the Black Swordsman arc, that entire period of Guts' life, the 2 years of hunting apostles, sleeping with the Dragon Slayer, becoming a beast of darkness, was fueled by the fact that he had nothing left to lose but his own life. Casca was safe, physically at least, in the cave. She was unaware. He could park her there and go on his rampage. But a sane Casca? A Casca who is the former commander of the Band of the Hawk? She is not going to sit in a cave while Guts wages war. Or perhaps she is so broken by the reality of it that she cannot move, and Guts is forced to stay, denied his revenge because his duty to her is no longer just to protect a body, but to comfort a soul that he is incapable of comforting. Let's dig into the psychology of this. This is where Miura's genius for human relationships would have taken a turn into the darkest psychological realism. We talk often about the hedgehog's dilemma, the idea that the closer two traumatized people get, the more they hurt each other. Guts and Casca post-Eclipse, if both were sane, would be the ultimate embodiment of this. They love each other. That was established in the Wounds chapter. That beautiful, fragile connection they made before the horror. But now every time Guts looks at Casca, he sees his failure. He sees the woman he couldn't save. And every time Casca looks at Guts, she sees the event. She sees the carnage. But worse, she sees the rage that she feels but cannot express in the same way. The physical intimacy would be impossible. We saw this in the manga when she was regressed. Her body remembered the trauma even if her mind didn't. But if her mind is present, the touch of the man she loves would be terrified by the memory of the demon who defiled her. The tragedy here is so thick, you can choke on it. Guts, the man whose love language is physical protection and presence, would be utterly paralyzed. He couldn't hold her without triggering a nightmare. He couldn't leave her without abandoning her to the abyss. They would be trapped in that cave, two ghosts haunting their own living bodies, united by a brand that bleeds every night, signaling that they are meat for the beast. And we have to talk about the child, the demon infant. This is the elephant in the room that changes the entire trajectory of the narrative. In the original story, the corrupted fetus is a source of confusion and instinctual horror-posh protection for Casca. She protects it like a mother animal. But a sane Casca? She knows what that is. She knows whose seed corrupted it. She knows it is an amalgamation of Gut's child and Femto's malice. Can you imagine the psychological torture of carrying that? The warring instincts of a mother's love against the visceral revulsion of the assault. Miura never shied away from the grotesque realities of the world, and this would be the peak of that struggle. Casca would be forced to confront a physical manifestation of her trauma growing inside her, twisting her, calling out to the very monsters that destroyed her family. Would she try to end it? Would Guts stop her? The conflict there isn't sword against sword. It is the sanctity of life against the reality of a curse. This fundamentally changes Guts' transformation into the Black Swordsman. I don't think he becomes the mad dog we see in the early chapters. He can't. The Black Swordsman is a persona born of isolation. It requires Guts to be alone with his ghosts. If Casca is there, looking at him, he has to be human. He has to be a man. And that might actually be harder for him. Guts knows how to fight. He knows how to swing a sword. He understands blood and guts and bone. He does not understand how to heal a shattered psyche while his own is bleeding out. He would be forced to confront his own inadequacy much earlier. He wouldn't be able to run away into the misty valley to fight moth demons. He would have to sit by the fire and talk. And what do you say? What words exist in the human language to bridge the gap of the eclipse? I'm sorry. I'll kill him? None of it fixes the fact that they are branded. The brand of sacrifice is the ultimate antagonistic force here. It is not just a tattoo, it is a dinner bell for the astral plane. Every night the spirits come. In the original, Guts fights them alone, while Casca sleeps in the cave or wanders off. If she is sane, she is fighting too. We get the return of the warrior Casca, but it's a darker version. She's not fighting for Griffith's dream anymore. She's fighting for survival. But is she fighting with the same fire? Or has the eclipse broken her will? I suspect we would see a Casca who is ruthlessly pragmatic, perhaps even colder than Guts. Guts runs hot. His rage is a furnace. Casca was always the tactician. Her trauma might manifest as a terrifying icy detachment. She might look at Guts' blind rage and see it as a liability, the same way she used to look at his recklessness in the Golden Age. This brings us to the concept of destiny and causality. The Skull Knight told Guts that his struggle is like a fish leaping in the river. He can disturb the water, but he cannot change the current. If Casca is sane, the current has been disturbed significantly. The safe haven of Godot's mine becomes a war room. Rickert, poor Rickert, who didn't see the Eclipse, walks into a dynamic that is incomprehensible. Instead of Guts leaving and Rickert tending to a simple-minded Casca, Rickert becomes the mediator between two broken deities of war. He sees the beast of darkness taking shape not just in Guts, but in the space between Guts and Casca. Think about the moment Guts gets the Dragon Slayer. In the canon, he takes it to hunt. In this timeline, he takes it because he realizes the magnitude of the threat against her is immediate. He isn't hunting. He is fortifying. The narrative shifts from a road movie of revenge to a siege mentality. They are under siege by the God Hand, by their memories, by the world itself. And what about the dream? Griffith's dream. It's crushed. But Casca's dream? She never really had one of her own, did she? She wanted to be Griffith's sword. Then she wanted to be with Guts. Now, her dream is a nightmare. This is where the tragedy hits the hardest. Guts can replace his lost dream with revenge. He has a target. Casca has the target, but she also has the complex emotional history of having loved the monster. Guts hated Griffith eventually, but Casca worshipped him. To be violated by your god is a spiritual destruction that Guts cannot fully comprehend. This creates a wall between them that no sword can cut through. I want to pause here and really let that sink in. The genius of Miura's writing is that he understands that trauma is not a plot device. It is a rewriting of the character's reality. If Casca is sane, she is not the Casca we knew. She is a survivor of the apocalypse. Her interactions with Guts would be laced with a profound, aching sadness. Every time he swings that sword, she sees the futility of it. She knows, better than anyone, what Griffith has become. She saw femto. She looked into those eyes and saw the absence of humanity. Guts saw a monster to be killed. Casca saw the death of hope. So, the early chapters, the Black Swordsman arc, the Lost Children arc, they don't happen the way we know them. We don't get Puck providing comic relief to a solo Guts. We get Puck stumbling upon a broken couple, a dyad of despair. Puck's role becomes even more crucial. He becomes the therapist, the only spark of light in a cave so dark it consumes everything. The encounters with the apostles, the Count, the Snake Baron, they become tactical duo fights, which sounds cool on paper, right? Guts and Casca back-to-back fighting apostles. But it wouldn't be cool. It would be desperate. It would be messy. Casca isn't in physical shape to fight apostles. She's recovering from a physical assault that nearly killed her. She would be pushing herself beyond her limits, bleeding, driven by self-hatred, trying to wash away the stain of the Eclipse with the blood of enemies. Guts would be frantic, trying to protect her, his fighting style becoming sloppy because he's distracted, his eye always on her instead of the enemy. It changes the action of Berserk into pure anxiety. We wouldn't be cheering for Guts to win. We would be terrified that this is the fight where Casca pushes too hard and breaks. And when the night falls and the ghosts come, it's not a battle. It's an endurance test. The interstice between the physical and astral worlds becomes their permanent home. They are refugees from reality. And consider the Bonfire of Dreams speech, that iconic moment where Guts realized he needed to find his own spark. That spark led him back to the Hawks, led him to the Eclipse. Now, looking at the ashes of that bonfire, Guts and Casca would have to have the hardest conversation of their lives. Does Guts pursue revenge? If he does, he drags Casca into the line of fire. If he stays, he lets the hawk fly free. A sane Casca might actually forbid him from going. She might say, "We survived. That is our revenge." We live. But Guts. Guts is a struggler. He cannot sit still. This fundamental ideological clash, acceptance versus struggle, would tear them apart from the inside. Mira often used the imagery of the beast of darkness to represent Guts' antisocial rage. But in this scenario, the beast has competition. Casca's trauma would manifest its own astral shadow, perhaps a bird of silence or something equally haunting. We would see visual metaphors of their respective coping mechanisms clashing on the page. The art would be suffocatingly detailed, capturing the nuance of a glance shared between two people who know too much. This first chapter of our What If concludes not with a resolution, but with a realization of the trap they are in. The eclipse didn't end when the Skull Knight broke through the dimension. It just changed venues. In the original story, Casca's madness allowed Guts to carry the burden of memory alone. It was heavy, it crushed him, it turned him into a monster. But it was his burden, sharing the weight of that cosmic horror. It might just be too heavy for two human hearts to carry without breaking each other. They are standing at the precipice of the abyss, holding hands, but their hands are slippery with blood, and the gravity of the God hand is pulling them down. If the cave of Godot was the pressure cooker, the tower of conviction is where the lid blows off. In our original timeline, this arc is defined by Guts chasing a ghost, a mindless Casca who has wandered into the heart of a fanatical nightmare. But in our sane Casca timeline, the geography of this arc shifts tectonically. They don't stumble into St. Albion. They are likely driven there by the brand. Casca, the tactician, would realize that running is futile. If the spirits are hunting them, they need to find high ground, or perhaps they are tracking rumors of Griffith's rebirth, guided by that terrible, aching intuition that connects the branded to the God hand. When they arrive at the refugee camp at the base of the tower, we don't see Casca as the helpless, silent figure worshipped by the pagan cultists. We see Casca, the commander. We see a woman who looks at the squalor, the desperation, and the religious fanaticism of the Holy See, and she sees the exact same mechanism that allowed Griffith to rise. She recognizes the look in the eyes of the refugees, that desperate need for a savior, that willingness to suspend their own will for a hawk of light. This is a massive psychological trigger. For Canon Casca, the cult was a confusing whirlwind. For sane Casca, the cult is a mirror of the band of the hawk. She sees the Lady Farnese not as a nuisance, but as a terrifying reflection of her former self, a woman blind with devotion, suppressing her own nature for a dogma that doesn't care about her. The friction between Casca and Farnese here would be electric. It wouldn't be the protector-protected dynamic we eventually got. It would be a clash of ideologies. Casca, stripped of her illusions by the eclipse, versus Farnese, desperate to maintain hers. When the Holy Iron Chain Knights try to capture them, Casca fights. And this is crucial. She fights with the finesse of a master fencer, contrasting Guts' brutal, broad strokes. Imagine the visual of that. Guts is the hammer, Casca is the scalpel. They cut through the knights, not with malice, but with the weary efficiency of soldiers who know they are fighting children. But there's a cost. Every kill reminds Casca of the comrades she lost. Every drop of blood brings the eclipse back. The birth ceremony isn't just a monster spawning event. It is a psychological reenactment of the festival of the eclipse. When Mozgus transforms and the localized eclipse begins, Casca isn't the damsel. She is right there in the mud. But here lies the danger, the trauma. As the blob monsters rise, as the faces of the damned scream from the ground, Casca's sanity would be tested to its absolute limit. In the canon, she retreats into her mind. Here, she must force herself to stay present. Guts, seeing her panic, might go even more berserk than usual. He isn't just fighting to save her life. He is fighting to save her mind from shattering again. The stakes are internal. If she freezes, she dies. If she fights too hard, she might lose herself to the same bloodlust that consumes Guts. And then, the climax of the arc, Griffith's rebirth. In the canon, Casca is present but unaware. She stares at the shining light with a vague recognition. Now, imagine her standing on that wall as the sun rises, seeing Zod bow, seeing the egg crack, and seeing him emerge. The White Hawk, perfect, divine, unscathed, while she stands there, scarred, branded, bleeding, her friends dead, her life ruined. The rage that would erupt from her would rival Guts, but it would be complicated by the demon infant. She knows that the vessel Griffith is using is the twisted body of her child. The horror of that realization is almost too much to articulate. The man who violated her has now stolen the only thing that came from that union, purifying it into a suit of armor for his own ambition. It is the ultimate violation. The scream she lets out here wouldn't be the scream of a victim. It would be the scream of a mother and a betrayed soldier. It would be the sound of the world breaking. This leads us to the Hill of Swords. This scene is, in my opinion, the emotional pivot point of the entire series. Guts versus Griffith. But add a sane Casca to this equation, and the gravity becomes unbearable. When Griffith arrives at the Hill of Swords to pay his respects, and Guts attacks him, what does Casca do? Does she draw her sword? Or does she stand frozen? I believe she steps forward, and this is where the dialogue would shatter us. Guts screams, but Casca speaks. She asks the question that Guts can't form. Why? Not just, why did you do it? But, was it worth it? Griffith's answer, that cold, indifferent, I will not betray my dream, would land differently on her. She dedicated her life to that dream. To hear him dismiss their sacrifice as necessary fuel would kill the last remnant of the girl who worshipped him. But here is the twist. Rickert is there. Sane Casca would immediately move to protect Rickert. She becomes the matriarch of this broken family. The dynamic shifts from Guts protecting everyone to Guts and Casca co-parenting a group of lost souls. This brings us to the formation of the RPG party. Isidro, Shirka, Farnese, Serpico. In the original, the party forms around the need to protect helpless Casca. Farnese finds purpose in caretaking. Shirka finds a unique spiritual puzzle. If Casca is sane, she is the leader. She is the one with military command experience. Guts is the vanguard, the shock trooper. But Casca, she organizes. She tells Isidro how to hold a dagger properly. She tells Farnese that prayer won't stop an ogre. But there is a friction here. Casca might resent these children. She might look at Isidro and see a dead hawk. She might look at Shirka and see the supernatural forces that ruined her life. She wouldn't be the gentle mother figure immediately. She would be the hardened veteran who doesn't want to get attached because she knows everyone she loves dies. And then, the berserker armor. This changes everything. When Guts dons the armor, he loses his humanity to fight the apostles. In the canon, he is pulled back by the Moonlight Boy, or Shirka's astral projection. If Casca is there, sane and watching, she sees the man she loves turning into a monster to fight the monster they hate. The tragedy is palpable. She knows he is doing it for her, And she hates it. She hates that she is the reason he is destroying himself. There's a scene in the manga where the beast of darkness tempts Guts to kill Casca, bite her, rip her apart. In our timeline, the beast's temptation is more insidious. It whispers, she judges you. She sees you as a monster just like him. She's afraid of you. The psychological warfare between Guts and his inner demon becomes fueled by his insecurity about Casca's view of him. Does she see Guts, or does she see another violent beast? There is a moment I visualize vividly on the beach, leading to Vertanis. A quiet moment. Guts is recovering from the armor, shaking, his body failing. Casca sits beside him. No words are needed, but they speak anyway. They talk about the child. They talk about the Moonlight Boy. In the canon, this connection is vague instinct. Here, they put the pieces together. They realize that on full moon nights, their child returns, wearing the face of their enemy, yet possessing the innocence they lost. This creates a confusing, heartbreaking dilemma. They cannot kill Griffith without killing their son. They cannot embrace their son without holding the vessel of Griffith. It is a paradox designed by causality to maximize suffering. And what of the goal? They wouldn't be going to Elfhelm to cure Casca. She is sane, so why go? They go to find a way to break the brand, to sever the tie, to find a place where they can stop fighting. But a sane Casca might argue against it. She might say, we have the Dragon Slayer, we have the armor, let's finish this. This is the ultimate conflict. Guts wants to find peace for her, but she might want justice for them. The roles reverse. Guts, tired and broken, just wants her safe. Casca, fueled by the clarity of her trauma, wants the head of the hawk. This leads us to the deeper thematic resonance of Miura's work. Berserk is about the struggle against a preordained fate. If Casca is sane, she represents the human capacity to endure the unendurable without breaking. Her madness was a flight from reality. Her sanity is a confrontation with it. The tragedy of Berserk is that knowledge often brings more pain. Ignorance was a shield. With that shield gone, Casca feels every cut. We, the audience, are forced to ask, is it better to be awake in hell or asleep in a nightmare? The interactions with Shirka become profound. Shirka, the young witch, learns not just about magic, but about the cost of power from a woman who saw the ultimate magic ritual, the Eclipse, destroy the world. Casca would teach Shirka that magic isn't a game. It's a terrifying force that demands a price. And Farnese? Farnese would look at Casca not as a doll to be dressed, but as a warrior to be emulated. Farnese's arc becomes about learning to be strong like Casca, seeking her approval, trying to bridge the gap between her sheltered nobility and Casca's mercenary grit. As we approach the theoretical end of this timeline, the arrival at Elfhelm, the climax isn't the corridor of dreams to fix a mind. It is a trial of the soul. The elf king wouldn't be asked to heal madness. He would be asked to heal the brand. And the answer, likely, would be that the brand cannot be removed, only endured. This brings us to the most crushing realization of all. The struggle is the destination. Guts and Casca, standing on the shores of Elfhelm, looking back at the continent where their falcon creates a utopia on top of corpses, have to make a choice. To live in the bliss of the fairies, forgetting the world, or to go back. A sane Casca chooses to go back, because she is a commander, because she cannot let the sacrifice of the hawks be in vain, because she knows that Griffith's Falconia is a lie built on the souls of her friends. And Guts follows, not because he wants revenge anymore, He's past that, but because he follows her. In the Golden Age, he left to find his own path to stand as her equal. In this timeline, he realizes his path is to be her sword, not as a subordinate, but as a partner. The bonfire of dreams is reignited, but this time it burns with a blue, cold flame of resolve. This what if doesn't give us a happier Berserk. In fact, it gives us a sadder one. It gives us a story where the characters are fully aware of the tragedy every step of the way. There are no moments of blissful ignorance. Every smile is hard-won. Every laugh is shadowed by the eclipse. But it also gives us a story of unparalleled resilience. It shows us that the human spirit can look into the face of a god-demon, remember the violation, remember the loss, and still choose to pick up a sword. It transforms the narrative from saving Casca to Casca and Guts saving themselves. And isn't that what we are all doing? We look at the darkness in our own lives, our traumas, our failures, the brands we carry that bleed when we are stressed or afraid. And we have a choice. We can retreat into the madness of denial, or we can stand up, pick up our heavy iron slabs of responsibility, and struggle. Sane Casca teaches us that healing isn't forgetting. Healing is remembering, hurting, and walking forward anyway. It recontextualizes the struggle not as a fight against monsters, but as a fight to remain human in an inhuman world. So, as we close this exploration, I want you to carry this image with you. Guts and Casca side by side, scarred, tired, aging, standing against an army of apostles. No madness to hide behind, no chosen one prophecy to save them, just two humans, holding the line against the abyss. That, my friends, is the true essence of Berserk. That is the beauty of the struggle. And that is why, even in our darkest moments, we keep reading, keep watching, and keep struggling.